Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Mary Catherine Ham joins me, the host of Getting Hammered. You can follow her on X at MKHammer. Mary Catherine, the Travis Manion 9/11 Heroes Run is coming up, and that's 911heroesrun.com. I did a 10K yesterday. It wasn't a Travis Manion one, and I was
Nice.
walking, not running yesterday. Where are you running this weekend?
I am running in Oakton, Virginia. That's September 22nd at 8 a.m. And we will have a great time. Sign up at 911heroesrun.com. And there are runs still happening all through September. So join us. You have a good old time. It'll lift your spirits in sort of a rough news cycle.
It is a very rough news cycle. Let me begin by showing you something, Mary Catherine, that on one of my trundles last week I saw and took a picture of. And if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you can see it. How would you describe that, Mary Catherine? It's a sign for Harris Waltz.
It looks like a homemade greeting card that you would sell at the farmer's market. And it has a cat stretching on it and some cutesy font. And it says, "Not going back."
You're not old enough to realize this is 1968 graphics. This is Flower Power, Flower Child graphics.
Well,
And
that's why you'd see it at the
I'm
farmer's
quite,
market. So that makes sense.
yeah, and I'm quite certain that everyone who's alive that voted for George McGovern is going to vote for Kamala Harris. That's the Harris Waltz poster that I took a picture of because it's so funny. It's just so funny. Here's something that's not funny. Kamala Harris last night at the National Association of Black Journalists cut 21.
Do you have full confidence in the Secret Service to
I do.
protect all of you?
I do.
You feel safe for you and your family?
I do. But, I mean, you can go back to Ohio. Not everybody has Secret Service. And there are far too many people in our country right now who are not feeling safe. I mean, I look at Project 2025 and
Stop
I look at,
right there. What do you think of that answer up to that point?
That is a disgusting and appalling answer. I believe I listened to the whole answer yesterday, and to my knowledge, she barely references the fact that Donald Trump is, in fact, the one who is not safe. The one who is running for president, who is demonstrably not safe, is Donald Trump. I'm glad she feels safe. That's great. She has not had 2 assassination attempts on her life, and that's wonderful. We are blessed that the
Nor
2
would
didn't
we
work
want
out
that
on Donald Trump.
ever.
Yeah, this is wild to me that Democrats can't have, and media, but I repeat myself, can't have the basic decency to even pretend at this point that they are concerned that Republicans are being shot, because their idea is, frankly, what we say and do is good, what you say and do is bad, anything you do is bad, and in fact might cause you to be shot. And hey, y'all probably shouldn't have acted that way. Y'all probably shouldn't have said the things you believe. This is what they actually believe, and it leads them to not even acknowledge the tragedy of this event and the fact that it could throw our country into an absolute tailspin if this was successful. It's disgusting. Nothing
would.
makes me madder than this news cycle.
I lived through 1968. I remember my hero at the time as a 12-year-old was Bobby Kennedy getting killed, Martin Luther King getting killed 2 months before that. It is so traumatic. I remember Kennedy getting killed. I was in first grade. And it's just so bad for the country that the treatment of it is astonishing. Mary Catherine, I do want to dial in on causation. Charles C.W. Cook, one of the people I listen to on podcasts like you and Vic Mattis on Getting Hammered, Charles C.W. Cook is often on the editors. He and I are on the same page. Causation means proximate cause, legal cause. The only person who caused the assassination attempts on Donald Trump legally are the shooters. I'm not one of these people who want to trace it to Joy Reid or anybody else. I think that's nuts, and it's against the First Amendment. But honestly, let's have one standard. If we're going to apply one standard to Republicans, it's got to be one standard for Democrats, right?
Yes. So my line has always been, because I care about speech and I don't want to chill other people's speech, I'm not going to blame your political speech or for every nutbag that comes along. Okay? But here's the deal. You can't lecture me while I'm keeping my rhetoric responsible for my entire career and standing up for the fact that other people should be able to speak freely. You can't lecture me about how we need to bring the temperature down when you've been the ones very notably not bringing the temperature down for years. It is embarrassing to watch them change their values on a dime during a TV segment. So they will say, clearly Trump brought this on himself with his rhetoric, right? And then as soon as Trump says, your rhetoric might have had something to do with this, in the same segment, they'll say, that rhetoric's the problem. Our rhetoric is never, ever a problem. And by the way, Republicans, please behave better. I mean, it's infuriating.
It is, and I'm going to talk with Mary Catherine during the break and put it on the podcast. I've been doing this since 1990, and no one's ever accused me of incendiary rhetoric because I don't use it. I try and persuade people. Mary Catherine doesn't use it either. I don't know, actually, of mainstream conservative people who do. They'll get mad at Ben Shapiro. He doesn't use incendiary rhetoric. Ben machine guns facts. They just get mad because he beats them. And actually, the nutters out there, I'm glad they get sued, and I'm glad they get sued into oblivion if they lie about Sandy Hook and things like that. But that ain't us. That ain't me, babe, to quote Bob Dylan. And it isn't Mary Catherine Ham. Don't forget the 911heroesrun.com or Getting Hammered. I'm going to talk to Mary Catherine about Kamala Harris during the break. Put it on the podcast. Stay tuned, America. Welcome back. Mary Catherine Ham is my guest for this portion of my podcast, the host of Getting Hammered, in which she and Vic Mattis contribute at least 2 times a week. Mary Catherine, I'm very concerned about this election. I'm not concerned about the end of the Constitution. The Constitution is very strong. The Republic is very strong. But Kamala Harris she hadn't got a thought in her head. She's vapid. And she will not take Chinese communists seriously, and we will not maintain our pacing with the CCP. That's my number one concern. My second concern is Israel's going to find itself abandoned. How concerned are you about 4 years of Kamala Harris?
I'm pretty concerned. I think she doesn't have real thoughts, and to the extent that she is going to have policies, they're going to be sort of default California lefty bad instincts. She clearly doesn't have the ability even to answer a basic question with, hey, I'm sorry that my opponent was shot and I'm really glad he's still alive. But she's just not capable of much. So that concerns me because I don't know who will be in charge, much like we don't know who's in charge now. Divided government will help. As you may have noticed, the press will not hold her accountable. There was not even one question on China, your number one concern and one of our number one geopolitical concerns, at the debate. And on Israel, I believe in that NABJ interview. It's nice to see her finally taking questions, I guess. I believe she said she'd be comfortable with limiting weapons to Israel. So we should be concerned about those things. Her instincts are bad. Her skills are basically non-existent. And I do not believe she has the ability to push back on whatever committee ends up running the country.
Here is what she said about Israel at the NABJ, cut number 30. It's 1:38, Mary Catherine, but let's let the audience hear it.
Is there a specific policy change that you, as president of the United States, would say you would do that would help this along? Because you've gotten a lot of credit for emphasizing the humanity of Palestinians. But what I often hear from folks is that there's no policy change that either you or President Biden have gone and said they would do. Is there a specific policy change as president that you would do in our helping of Israel?
We need to get this deal done. And we need to get it done immediately. And that is my position, and that is my policy. We need to get this deal done.
But in the way that we send weapons, in the way that we interact as their ally, are there specific policy changes?
Well, Eugene, for example, one of the things that we have done that I am entirely supportive of is the pause that we've put on the 2,000-pound bombs. And so there is some leverage that we have had and used. But ultimately, the thing that is going to unlock everything else in that region is getting this deal done. And I'm not going to disclose private conversations, but I will tell you I've had direct conversations with the Prime Minister, with the President of Israel, with Egyptian leaders, and with our allies. And I think we've made ourselves very clear this deal needs to get done in the best interest of everyone in the region, including getting those hostages out who, we saw the latest example of what happened with the 6 most recently, one of whom was an American citizen.
Well, Mary Catherine, she's like a bad jukebox with only 6 records, none of which are good. And this, we got to get a deal done, is one of them. What do we do about? I mean, she only gets interviewed by people who don't know how to do interviews.
Yeah, no, she's so deeply unimpressive. I joked last night, my children were like, "What's for dinner?" And I was like, "Well, I come from a middle class family." Because she doesn't address questions, right? And no one who's interviewing her is willing. You can tell they're trying to help her. They can tell they know she's not answering this question when she starts answering. So they're sort of helping her along and giving her a little bit of Cliff's notes. I don't think she really understands the situation. I don't think she's studied the maps, as she famously said. They're stuck on this idea of a two-state solution, which even when you talk to the most like peace activist Israelis go, like, that's been set back for at least a generation by October 7th. Like, let's live in reality. When they talk about a deal that's to be made, it's Hamas who's rejecting the deals. And Hamas is partly rejecting the deals because they don't have a lot to deal with, because unfortunately, as they've not been checked on by the international community or Red Cross, they have eliminated a lot of the hostages that are there, right? So they don't have what it takes to make a deal. And Israel wants to preserve the right to its own existence, which requires allowing them to fight and not saying that we're
So,
just
a
going to
quick
give
exit
up.
question, Mary Catherine. Do you think 3,000 exploding pagers in Hezbollah pockets is going to advance a deal? Or I mean, there is no deal. There's a war. There's a 2-front war, a 7-front war. Israel struck a blow. I don't know when she gave the NABJ, but that had to have been known by the time she did that interview that the pagers were exploding in Hezbollah pockets.
Well, I think what she doesn't understand, what Democrats generally don't understand, is that strength can actually end a war, right? If you win the war can end. And what Israel is doing is signaling through its all these counterintelligence, counterterrorism operations, especially this very sophisticated one. We know where you are, Iranian proxies, and we will do this to you. Instead of what America's been doing, which is we will give you pallets of cash. Can we help you with anything, Iran? Uh, and so I think the message being sent by Israel is the correct one that could get you to a peaceful resolution of a war once they have won the war, but they cannot just stop fighting. That is not how it ends.
Last question. She said there were no Americans in combat. I'll talk to Mike Waltz about that today. I'm still angry about that because I've got family on the Lincoln. They're under attack by the Houthis. I don't know if the Lincoln has been, but American sailors are. We got soldiers under attack in Iraq in the last 2 weeks. We had 3 killed in Jordan. Do you think she doesn't know? I mean, is she ignorant of that, or she just lied in the debate?
I think she doesn't know. And I think the fact that she doesn't know means that she lives in a bubble and she is ignorant to a ridiculous degree about the challenges that military families face and what geopolitics actually looks like. Because, as you note, we've had 3 guardsmen in Jordan and 2 Navy SEALs die just in January of this year. I don't know how that slipped her mind, but it slipped Biden's mind that the 13 died at the Abbey Gate when he said at the debate that no one has died on his watch. They have demonstrated almost sociopathic lack of concern for Gold Star families and for military all across the world. And they just get credit for being empathetic because they are Democrats. But this line that they keep using is really, really disrespectful to actual people who are doing the work and who have lost loved ones.
On that note, on that very sober note, thank you, Mary Catherine. I look forward to the next edition of Getting Hammered. And to everyone who's listening to the podcast, go to 911heroesrun.com. Sign up for a run in your area, 911heroesrun.com, and Getting Hammered. Follow and like it. Follow and like it. Thank you, Mary Catherine.